You should hear what keeps him up at night.
This is what keeps me up at night. I don't understand how my fellow Americans, I don't even understand how this election is close. And yes, I'm voting for you, but I would also vote for that wall over there.
Well, he's half right. We do need a wall. You know, to keep out gang members, fentanyl dealers, human traffickers, and Anna Navarro. What's funny, though, is that Stern actually thought that was a compliment. Stern has become such a wussified sycophant, he doesn't realize that telling Kamala that he'd vote for a wall is telling her that he knows she's as dumb as one.
Howard Stern built his empire on shock, rebellion, and tearing down the establishment. But when Greg Gutfeld took aim at the king of controversy, Stern went silent. No comebacks, no fire, just awkward silence louder than words. In a live segment, Gutfeld didn't just point out Stern's evolution, he exposed it as a sellout. The rebel had become the system, and Gutfeld lit the match. What happens when the uncensored icon gets out-rebelled on his own turf?
But that's how Stern can call snacking with celebs at a fancy restaurant exhausting. Exhausting. Like he finished the overnight shift in a coal mine. Or hearing Kat talk about her pets.
It's fair.
But I get it, life is tough, especially when you've been cut off from the world for 2 years in a $20 million beach house. I mean, you have no idea how tiring it is walking all the way from the wine cellar to the tennis court and back.
Some TV moments fade and vanish, but others carve themselves into pop culture like a meteor strike. Loud, fiery, and impossible to ignore. The showdown between Greg Gutfeld and Howard Stern was exactly that. It wasn't just a clash of words, it was a cultural collision. Two media giants from different worlds collided, and only one walked away looking like he still belonged in the stratosphere. For decades, Howard Stern has carried the crown as the self-proclaimed king of all media.
But it is incredibly brave to take this stance after you've made $300, $400 million not being woke, right? Loving Donald Trump, exploiting the mentally ill, wearing blackface. Look at the crop of woke comments, whether it's Stern or Jimmy Kimmel, his BFF, Sarah Silverman, Joy Behar, Michael Ian Black. What do they all have in common? They wore blackface. And then they went woke. It's not a chicken or egg thing there. You know what order it came. So I call this BFR. It's blackface reparations. There's nothing in Stern's previous career that could withstand this modern witch hunt that he now embraces. So this is a form of restitution. Maybe he says, you know, if I'm woke too, the crocodile will eat me last. But they always do eat. But I get it. He flipped from populist to elitist because now he's with elitists.
If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon. Once the pioneer of shock radio, Howard Stern built his empire by doing what no one else dared. He was the brash voice of rebellion, the raw conscience of a generation tired of polite society. His name became synonymous with disruption, defiance, and controversy. You either loved him or despised him, but you couldn't ignore him. Yet here's the truth about being a rebel king. Stay on the throne too long, and the edge begins to dull. Over time, Stern has gone through a slow, curious transformation.
I will say this, Dagan. I thank God for Howard Stern because he does make me feel normal by comparison. Because I'm like the Fox recluse. I don't do anything. I don't go anywhere. But he makes me look like, you know, Pete Davidson on a...
Yeah, he's a germaphobe. Like, his wife rescues cats. That's her job, apparently, her thing. But you can get toxoplasmosis.
That's true.
Cryptosporidiosis.
AIDS.
And
no, you can't.
No,
but
you can't get.
No, you can't.
But you can get.
I mean, what are the chances I get that again?
Like a lot of diarrhea related.
From a brash outsider to a soft-spoken celebrity interviewer mingling with Hollywood's elite, today's Howard Stern feels more like a polished talk show host than the volcanic force he once was. And that's where Greg Gutfeld spotted an opening, a vulnerable crack in the armor. Love him or hate him, Gutfeld has mastered the art of televised confrontation. He's part political commentator, part late-night jester, and part cultural wrecking ball. He doesn't just argue, he dissects, ridicules, and exposes. With a nightly show fueled by sarcasm, satire, and razor-sharp commentary, Gutfeld built his empire by torching sacred cows and sparking fires where others stay silent. So when Stern appeared in one of Gutfeld's segments, casual at first, then suddenly not so casual, the stage was set. What began as a passing mention turned into a focused, surgical takedown. Gutfeld didn't just question Stern Stern's transformation, he dismantled it. He mocked the once chaotic rebel, now preaching conformity from his penthouse studio.
On his radio show, Howard Stern defended wokeism, saying it's a compliment when someone calls him woke. Listen.
If woke means I can't get behind Trump, which is what I think it means, or that I support people who want to be transgender, or I'm for the vaccine, well, dude, call.
And let's be clear, this wasn't some casual jab. Gutfeld leaned in hard. He didn't frame Stern as a legend, but as a cautionary tale. The message was unmistakable. Howard Stern, once a fearless iconoclast, had become the very thing he used to rage against. In Gutfeld's world, that's the ultimate sin: selling out, softening up, and joining the machine you once swore to destroy. There was no shouting needed. Gutfeld didn't raise his voice or foam with anger. Instead, he sliced with precision, like a surgeon with a scalpel. He drew a stark contrast between the old Stern, the wild-haired, reckless truth bomber who terrified censors and mocked elites, and the new Stern, polished and cozy with the celebrities he once shredded. It was a quiet gutting, a brutal unraveling of a legacy built on rebellion, but now teetering on respectability. The irony wrote itself. Here was the man who built an empire exposing phoniness, now wearing the very mask he once tore off others. Gutfeld didn't need to exaggerate. He only had to describe the transformation. The symbolism was devastating. The shock jock who once spat on the red carpet was now rolling it out for himself.
But Stern being holed up in his house that long, it explains a lot of things, like how you forget how other people live, especially in hard times like a pandemic. For the longest time, 2 years in fact, the same time Stern's been AWOL, I wondered where he went. Not physically, but mentally. I bet you did too. Remember his screeds about COVID? They were epic and angry, and not to mention wrong.
When are we going to stop putting up with the idiots in this country and just say, it's mandatory to get vaccinated? F them, f their freedom. I want my freedom to.
The man who once wore defiance like a badge now seemed fixated on approval. Hollywood approval, corporate approval, mainstream approval. What made Gutfeld's strike hit harder was the setting. His show thrives on irreverence, on turning sacred cows into burgers. So when he aimed at Stern, it wasn't just another celebrity feud. It felt like a generational indictment. One voice accusing another of losing its soul. The blow wasn't only personal, it was philosophical. And Stern, for once, had no comeback, no fireworks, no trademark takedown, only a deafening silence. Gutfeld didn't need to press for victory. The fact that his words landed so cleanly, with the public instantly recognizing a hard truth in them, was enough. Stern, the man who built his career by calling everyone out, was now the one being called out. And this time, it stuck. Viewers watched in real time as Gutfeld painted Stern as a ghost of his former self. It wasn't loud or belligerent. It was sharp, cold, and cutting, and it struck a nerve not just with fans, but with anyone who's seen a once revolutionary voice fade into comfortable irrelevance. The contrast between the two couldn't have been clearer.
Even when I watch them on Saturday Night Live with the where they have Maya Rudolph playing you, I hate it. I don't want you being made fun of.
Oh my God.
There's too much at stake. I believe the entire future of this country right now, I mean, as America, land of the free, home of the brave, I think it's literally on the line.
So a guy who's supposed to be funny for a living now claims her candidacy is too important to joke about. This is a guy who once joked right after the Columbine massacre that the killers should have raped the students before killing them. Not that I like that Stern, but this pendulum swing from saying the most tasteless thing in the universe to putting your balls in a Tic Tac container. You gotta wonder what's going on here. It's striking that the king of the most misogynistic humor ever now turns into a breathless over a progressive, hopelessly shallow candidate.
Stern built his legacy in an era when breaking rules meant fines from the FCC, bans from networks, and sponsors screaming in outrage. But that resistance only made him stronger. Gutfeld, by contrast, rose in a time where cancel culture, online mobs, and social media takedowns became the new form of censorship. He learned to fight with sarcasm instead of shock, ridicule instead of profanity. In truth, the Gutfeld-Stern clash wasn't just a battle of personalities, it was a collision of two media eras. Gutfeld embodies the digital insurgency, slick, sarcastic, meme-ready rebellion that thrives on exposing hypocrisy in 30-second viral bursts, and the audience saw it unfold like a courtroom drama without a judge. Just two gladiators and millions of viewers ready to crown a winner. What stung most for Stern was how easily Gutfeld pulled back the curtain. He didn't attack Stern's past, he praised it. The insult was in the comparison.
Happy Friday, America! Oh man, tonight is a special night. It's Feminine Friday, where all the panelists are women. Tonight we have Kennedy. Yeah! David McDowell. Pat Tim. And Janine Garofalo. A long way for a meat joke. Okay, I hope you had a good week. I did, and no thanks to Howard Stern. True, the New York Post reported that Stern hit a chic restaurant in NYC with a crew of A-listers, including Jimmy Kimmel, Jennifer Aniston, Jon Hamm, Justin Theroux, Jason Bateman. I was not invited. I guess
the old Stern, Gutfeld implied, would have shredded the sanitized version now appearing on satellite radio and late-night shows in a designer hoodie. That old Stern wouldn't have recognized the man who now traded deep chats with Hollywood elites or tossed softball questions to A-listers like it was a charity telethon. To Gutfeld, Stern had shifted from cultural sniper to media monk, muzzled, manicured, and far too cozy with the system he once torched. And once that image landed, there was no unseeing it. The aftermath was immediate. Social media exploded with clips, commentary, and reactions from every corner of the internet. The segment went viral not because of shock value, but because Gutfeld voiced what many former Stern fans had quietly thought for years, but never dared say aloud. And it sparked bigger questions. Can anyone truly remain a rebel forever?
Stern got even more pathetic, wondering how she doesn't nap.
When you said you don't nap, I get it, because like what you've taken on is extraordinarily difficult. And I mean, do you feel the pressure of the moment in the sense that, like when I met you out in the hall, I said, I'm really nervous because I want this to go well for you. I want it to go well for the country.
Hold on. I need a minute.
Is it inevitable that every firebrand becomes part of the establishment they once despised? Or worse, do they eventually defend that establishment once their seat at the table feels secure? Gutfeld's argument wasn't that Stern had changed, but how he changed. Not through genuine conviction, but through calculated self-preservation. The man who once feared nothing now seemed terrified of offending anyone. The rebel who mocked celebrity culture now appeared desperate to be embraced by it. And in Gutfeld's eyes, that wasn't growth. It was surrender. Ironically, Stern's silence in the aftermath only deepened the blow. The man who built his career on confrontation, who prided himself on shredding critics with lightning-fast comebacks, suddenly vanished. It gave the impression, fair or not, that Stern had nothing left, that he'd been blindsided, and maybe, deep down, even knew the criticism was true.
This definition of woke, it's if you call someone a know-it-all, you're not complimenting them on the breadth of their knowledge. Yeah. You're saying you don't know as much as you think you know. So, yeah, woke doesn't have anything to do with vaccines. What it really means is sort of a slavish devotion to left-wing ideology and then repeating it so you can get social credit.
Right.
That's really what it means.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you're smarter than anybody. And he had said in another part of this set, because I believe in the science. Well, if you believed in the science, you wouldn't be hiding out like Howard Hughes in your mansion. So
viewers who once admired Stern's fire were left wondering where that edge had gone. It wasn't just that he didn't respond, it was that he couldn't. Gutfeld threw the punch, and Stern didn't even move. Not out of defiance, but out of confusion. In an industry built on reaction and narrative control, his silence wasn't just a missed chance. It felt like quiet confirmation. Meanwhile, Gutfeld carried on almost smugly, like a man who knew the hit had landed. He didn't gloat, he didn't have to. The internet did it for him. Thousands of comments, retweets, and YouTube reactions validated his critique louder than any follow-up monologue could. What made it more striking was that Gutfeld wasn't targeting just any celebrity. He was striking at the man who once defined the art of tearing others apart. Howard Stern had built a career calling out hypocrisy, ego, and phoniness. This wasn't cheap gossip or late-night banter. It was a mirror held up to legacy itself. Stern was being forced to reckon with his own history. That's the curse of being a legend. Your past self becomes the standard. And when you fall short, no critic is harsher than your former effa.
I always hate that argument, like, what happened to the old Stern, or what people have changed. That's not what this is about. It's a weird disconnect.
Well,
What?
he hasn't changed.
No.
People have been calling him insane for 40 years.
Yeah,
that just used to be, this guy's nuts. And now they're like, oh, we're worried about Howard. He needs help.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll tell you, though, I'm a little sympathetic because what you said is correct, but I'm also a germaphobe.
Yeah.
And, you know, I just have a smaller apartment. Yes. So it's like
The whole exchange, direct or not, felt like a scathing commentary on the media itself, a mirror exposing its slow decay. Gutfeld's rise wasn't luck. It was built on the very qualities Stern once embodied but now seemed to have buried: unfiltered humor, relentless defiance, and zero tolerance for polished narratives. While legacy media buckles under self-censorship and corporate caution, Gutfeld has stepped into the vacuum with brash, unapologetic commentary that connects. He feeds the same hunger for authenticity that Stern once satisfied. But where Stern now chooses soft interviews and social acceptance, Gutfeld charges ahead, reckless, raw, and untamed. In today's fractured media world, this isn't just a clash of personalities, it's a changing of the guard. It isn't about politics, it's about authenticity, or at least the perception of it. And in that live TV moment, Gutfeld came across as the more authentic voice, the one unafraid to say the unsayable, even if it meant targeting a legend. Stern, in contrast, looked like a man still clinging to a reputation that no longer matched his reality.
Striking that the king of the most misogynistic humor ever now turns into a breathless over a progressive, hopelessly shallow candidate. But maybe that's the explanation. This is Stern's self-imposed penance for subjugating women to demoralizing stunts, capitalizing on desperate females thirsting for attention, even if it's from an oily paddle striking their bare asses.
Whether or not it's fair isn't the point. In media, perception becomes reality. The question now is what comes next. Does Stern reclaim his edge and silence the critics? Or does he keep walking the polished path, safer but weaker? And does Gutfeld, unafraid to punch upward, emerge as the new face of unfiltered commentary in a world starving for it? One thing is certain, the torch has been passed. Or maybe it was ripped away. Either way, the clash between Greg Gutfeld and Howard Stern wasn't just a TV moment. It was a cultural shift, a generational handoff, a reckoning for the man who once was the reckoning. And whether you love or hate them, you felt it. You knew something had changed. Because that's what happens when a king gets called out by the court jester.